Dark, stormy night, would you stop for a soaked stranger? The rain was coming down in sheets, making it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. The wind howled through the trees, and the occasional flash of lightning illuminated the desolate road. It was the kind of night that made you want to be anywhere but outside. One stormy night, a man was driving along a dark, winding road in the countryside. The road twisted and turned through the dense forest, and the man had to grip the steering wheel tightly to keep the car from skidding on the wet pavement. He was on his way home from a long day at work, and all he could think about was getting into his warm bed, when he saw a young woman standing by the side of the road. She was barely visible in the darkness, but the headlights of his car caught the glint of her wet hair and the outline of her figure. She stood there shivering, with her arms wrapped around herself for warmth. She was drenched from the rain, and though she looked somewhat eerie, there was something about her that made him feel compelled to stop. Maybe it was the way she looked so vulnerable, or maybe it was the thought of leaving someone out in such terrible weather. He couldn't leave her stranded. He rolled down his window and called out to her, asking if she needed a ride. She nodded silently, her eyes wide and filled with a strange mix of fear and relief. He pulled over and offered her a ride. She hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her options, before finally opening the door and climbing into the back seat. The man noticed that she was shivering uncontrollably, and he turned up the heat in an attempt to make her more comfortable. She quietly accepted and climbed into the back seat. As they drove, he tried to make conversation, but she spoke very little. Her responses were short and vague, and she seemed more interested in staring out the window than in talking. The man couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about her, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it, only mentioning a house not far down the road. She gave him directions in a soft, almost whispering voice, and he followed them without question. The road seemed to stretch on forever, and the rain showed no signs of letting up. When they reached her destination, the man was relieved to see the outline of a house in the distance. He pulled up to the front gate and turned off the engine. The house was old and looked like it had seen better days, but it was still standing, and that was all that mattered. The man got out to open the car door for her, but to his shock, the back seat was empty. The woman had vanished without a trace. He stood there in the pouring rain, staring at the empty seat in disbelief. How could she have disappeared so quickly? He hadn't heard the door open or close, and there was no sign of her anywhere. The back seat was empty. The woman had vanished without a trace. Confused and disturbed, he looked around, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, but there was nothing. It was as if she had never been there at all. The only evidence of her presence was the damp spot on the seat where she had been sitting. He approached the house she had pointed to. An elderly woman answered. When he told her the story, her face grew pale. She invited him inside, and they sat down in the dimly lit living room. The man recounted the entire experience, from the moment he saw the girl to the moment she disappeared. Her face grew pale. She explained that the girl he described was her daughter, who had tragically died in a car accident on that very road years ago. The man was stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could the girl he had just given a ride to be dead, who had tragically died in a car accident on that very road years ago? The elderly woman showed him an old photograph of her daughter, and the man recognized her immediately. It was the same girl he had picked up on the side of the road. The woman went on to explain that many people had reported seeing her daughter's ghost over the years, always on stormy nights, always asking for a ride. People claimed she still haunted the road, asking for rides on stormy nights, only to vanish before ever reaching home. The man listened in stunned silence as the woman told him about the countless drivers who had experienced the same thing. Some had even come to her house, just like he had, looking for answers, only to vanish before ever reaching home. It's said that many drivers still claim to have picked up the ghostly hitchhiker, only for her to disappear before they reach her home, leaving behind a damp seat and a sense of dread. The man couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. He thanked the woman for her time and left the house, his mind racing with thoughts of what he had just experienced, only for her to disappear before they reach her home, leaving behind a damp seat and a sense of dread. As he drove away, he couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the girl sitting in the back seat once again. But the seat remained empty, and the only sound was the steady patter of rain on the roof of the car, leaving behind a damp seat and a sense of dread. The man couldn't shake the feeling that he had just encountered something otherworldly. He wondered how many other drivers had experienced the same thing, and how many more would in the future. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Next time you see a figure by the road on a stormy night, think twice before stopping. The story of the ghostly hitchhiker is a chilling reminder that not everything is as it seems. Sometimes the most innocent-looking strangers can be the most dangerous, or in this case, the most haunting. She might not be what she seems. So, the next time you're driving on a dark, stormy night and you see a figure standing by the side of the road, remember this story. It might just save you from a chilling encounter with the